stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we'd like to welcome all of you to our meeting this evening. We appreciate that you've taken time out of your day to come and participate and make your voice heard in your local government at work. I want to highlight that we have business tonight as the local building authority, as the redevelopment agency of Salt Lake, and as the city council. I want to make and I'll make that distinction as we go through which entity we're acting as. Council members don't just serve on the city council member. When we're elected to also serve as the local building authority board and the redevelopment board. Think of it as the council wearing three different hats. We're beginning with the business of the local building authority, or LBA, then the redevelopment agency, and then finally on to city council. So we have some ground rules that we like to lay out for decorum and civility at the beginning of every meeting to make sure everyone feels comfortable and safe participating. So please be respectful of other people's comments. Avoid cheering or jeering because it could cause some to feel intimidated. Please also take care of this historic meeting room by not standing on the furniture or leaning against any decorative paintings. This room is the only room in the building that's used for its original purpose, which is lawmaking. If you have a sign, prop, or other piece of equipment, i.e. video equipment or other, please make sure that it does not cause a disruption or block any other's views. Signs wider than your chair will need to be displayed out in the hall. Also, items like sticks and dowels are not allowed. Please do not approach the dais. If you have something to pass out to the council, a staff member can assist you. Our staff is here to help you. If you need any assistance or have any questions, please raise your hand and a staff member will come help. Also, we recognize that 2 minutes of public comment may not be enough to get all of your thoughts outlined tonight. Please visit our website, slccouncil.com, or refer to the contact information sheets by the speaker cards for information about other ways to share your comments with the city council via email, phone, or mail. And as the holder of the large hammer tonight, I will enforce the 2-minute rule. Things have been getting a little loosey-goosey. Can't allow it. So please, let's be serious about keeping it to 2 minutes. Okay, so as the local business authority, we have no public hearings, potential action items, comments, new business, or unfinished business. However, we do have unfinished business.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
I move that the council, acting as the LBA, approve a resolution adopting the tentative budget for the Capital Projects Fund of the Local Building Authority of Salt Lake City, Utah for fiscal year 2019-20.
Second.
It's been moved by LBA board member Mendenhall and seconded by LBA board member Valdemoros. What? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? All right, that passes unanimously. And we have no other LBA business items, so the LBA stands adjourned. Okay. That was to signify we are moving into the next agenda, which is the RDA.
Do we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance again, Mr. Chair?
No.
Okay.
No, we do not. So we are now convened as the Salt Lake City Redevelopment Agency Board. As the RDA, we have no public comment hearings, potential action items, comments, or new business today. However,
Mr. Chair?
just a minute. We do have unfinished business. One item for the RDA to consider. Yes.
Mr. Chair, may I make a motion?
Yes.
I
Please do.
move that the board approve a resolution adopting the tentative budget for the redevelopment agency. Is that the board of fiscal year 2019-2020.
I have a motion by Board Member Fowler and seconded by Board Member Valdemoros. Are there any discussions to this? All right, we'll proceed with the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. And any abstentions? Okay, then that passes unanimously. We have no other RDA business under the consent agenda, so this RDA meeting stands adjourned. Okay. Okay, we are now convening as the City Council. Our first City Council business item is item A2. Mayor Biskupski will present the proposed Salt Lake City budget, including the library fund for fiscal year 2019-2020. Thank you, Mayor.
So I think this is probably easier so you can all hear me. So thank you to the council. I am pleased to announce and again present to the City Council and the people of Salt Lake City a balanced budget reflective of our shared values and interests. I am proud that for the past 3 years, my administration and the City Council have successfully and cooperatively worked through the budget process to fund the cultural shifts we have created to build a city for everyone. The budget I am presenting to you is in many ways the culmination of the work we have done together. As my last budget as your mayor, I am proud to say that the fiscal year 20 budget firmly establishes the commitments we have made to this community and creates a path for future mayors and councils to build from. This $330 million total general fund budget reflects an overall growth in revenues of $28.7 million. This includes growth in property and sales tax, the new county quarter-cent transportation sales tax approved last year, and the anticipated increase in revenue from a full year of the Funding Our Future initiative. To maintain our commitment to transparency, we have once again separated the Funding Our Future initiative budget. Just over $34.5 million, these funds are prioritized in the areas of housing, transit, streets, and law enforcement. I am also proud to say that for the first time in 5 years, the city has avoided using one-time revenue for ongoing costs, a problem we began addressing in the fiscal year budget 2017. To start this budget, I am once again prioritizing the employees, our experts who keep this city thriving. To ensure that Salt Lake City continues to keep up with the cost of living index, I am proposing a 2% salary increase for all non-represented employees. To maintain readiness, the fire department has also requested a one-time bonus program that has an incentive for firefighters to attend paramedic school. This year, we will set aside $16,000 in salary bonuses to help the Salt Lake City Fire Department fill these critical roles. In order to address particular needs within our police department, and after negotiations with the Police Association, my budget recommends the 2% salary increase for all represented police officers who are not scheduled to receive a step increase negotiated as part of their overall contract. These negotiated salary increases come at the 2, 4, 6, and 8-year marks in an officer's career. As we work to fulfill our pledge to increase the police department staffing by 50 officers through the Funding Our Future initiative, we must continue to make appropriate adjustments to allow the department to remain competitive in both recruitment and retention. To accomplish this goal, I am recommending using a portion of the Funding Our Future revenue allocated to the police department to increase the starting wage for officers by 2%. I am also recommending adding a new 6% step increase for officers at the 12-year mark. This change will help even out the lifetime compensation we offer to our police officers to fully reflect the 20 to 25-year career path of these public servants who protect our city. This salary package was voted on and accepted by the Salt Lake Police Association just last week. Overall, the total salary increases for city employees represents $3.8 million, as well as a $1.4 million increase in healthcare costs. I am proud that over the last 3 years, we have prioritized the well-being of all employees who keep the capital city running. Through our budgets, we have kept up with the cost of living, addressed salary inequities, and increased healthcare offerings. We have also provided for more learning opportunities through robust tuition reimbursement and the creation of Employees University. Our employees are the lifeblood of Salt Lake City, and as our city continues to grow, it is critical we not only provide them with opportunity, but that we enable them to deliver the best service possible. On February 5th, a strong late winter storm hit Salt Lake City, devastating thousands of trees in parks, along roads, and in yards across the city. Immediately following this historic storm, our urban forestry crews, led by Tony Goliath, in partnership with Parks, Public Utilities, and Streets crews, combed the city to clean up the devastation. With more than 85,000 public trees in city parks and lining the streets, our urban forest is a gem. To help the urban forestry team care for the tree canopy, I am proposing allocating $216,000 to add 2 crew members and additional equipment. I am also proposing adding 2 additional facilities maintenance employees and an additional groundskeeper to care for the city's buildings and surrounding property. Through the Capital Improvement Program budget, I am also forwarding recommendations from myself and the CIP board to make needed changes to the city's parks and public lands. These include investing $730,000 to restore the Liberty Park Seven Canyons fountain. This restoration will meet the expectations of the public, the art community, and the standards set by the health department. To help alleviate stress on Liberty Park, I am also recommending we spend $431,000 from CIP and park impact fees to create robust event space at Jordan Park. This will provide a new location for the type of large-scale events we see at Liberty Park nearly every summer weekend. I am also recommending the use of CIP funds to continue work at Hidden Hollow, create a community orchard along the growing 9-line trail, and begin work on the Foothill Trail System plan. Salt Lake City and partner communities along the Jordan River have also been working for decades to create a renaissance for the Jordan River Trail. To further this work, I am proposing just over $1 million to be allocated for the restoration of the Fisher Mansion Carriage House. Built in 1893, the Fisher Mansion and Carriage House have played many roles in our city's history, most notably as the residence of Albert Fisher and his family, founders of A. Fisher Brewing. With the Fisher Brewing name once again making beer in our city, and more importantly, with the completion of a $7 million connector bridge, which runs adjacent to the mansion, now is the perfect time to invest in this iconic space. When completed, the Carriage House will be home to a nature center and a recreation outpost, including a green bike station and canoe share program. With more than 75,000 users crossing the Jordan River Bridge in the last year, a restored Carriage House will be an anchor for recreational riders and commuters from across this region. Last year, through the Funding Our Future initiative, Salt Lake City made an unprecedented commitment to public transit, forever changing how people will commute in the city. This commitment was not about one-time allocation of funding, but ongoing support of a high-frequency transit network which will help clear our air while creating more equity and connectivity in our city. The city's transportation team and UTA have spent the last year preparing for August 11th, when the first 3 lines of the high-frequency transit network will begin. This has been a large lift for both agencies, requiring route planning, the acquisition of new buses, and the hiring of new drivers and support staff. Not an easy task in this job market. In partnership with the city, UTA is also preparing to begin an electric pilot on the 2nd South route, using 4 newly acquired all-electric buses. Last year, we allocated $4.2 million of Funding Our Future revenue to support this buildup. This included funding to add enhanced bus stops along the 3 routes, particularly along Route 9 on the city's west side, where we are delivering new service. This year, I am recommending an additional $2.8 million of Funding Our Future revenue to enable the full operation of the 3 initial lines. This realizes the city's $5.3 million annual investment in the operation of the 2nd South, 9th South, and 21st South high-frequency routes. Last year, we set aside $700,000 in funding needed to support a ride-share to transit program for residents in areas of the city least served. This includes Rose Park, Glendale, Poplar Grove, the Far East Bench, and the Upper Avenues. Salt Lake City is finishing up negotiations with a potential operator of this pilot program, which we intend to launch in conjunction with the new bus lines this August. This year, I am recommending an additional $800,000 of Funding Our Future revenue to allow this pilot program to be implemented and studied for at least a year. In total, my budget recommends allocating $7.6 million of the Funding Our Future revenue to transit. Last year, city councils around the county, including the Salt Lake City Council, supported a county-wide quarter-of-a-cent transportation sales tax option. We are projecting that this additional transportation funding will provide Salt Lake City $4.7 million in revenue this fiscal year. Like the Funding Our Future initiative, we have separated this revenue in the budget to clearly show how Salt Lake City is using our share. This new funding option will allow us to move forward on projects identified in the Transit Master Plan and on needed transportation infrastructure projects. 2 of these projects are the 9 Line and the Folsom Urban Trails, which connect our east and west sides. I am recommending allocating $2.1 million of this funding to those projects to help facilitate the completion of these trails. I am also recommending Salt Lake City set aside $1.5 million of this revenue to begin saving for the high-frequency routes projected to run along 6th North and 10th North. Our expectation, based on the realities of the resources available from UTA, is that these lines will be ready for launch in 2022. Just as our Transit Master Plan and the funding we have put forth to implement it is forever changing how people move around the city, our housing plan is forever changing the affordability landscape. Throughout the month of April, Salt Lake City celebrated Fair Housing Month by launching 4 new housing programs using fiscal year 19 sales tax dollars from the Funding Our Future initiative. These programs will bring stability to K through 12 students, those who suffer with mental illness, individuals currently in our homeless shelter, and our first responders. Each of these programs are in partnership with community agencies and will help fill gaps through which vulnerable people fall. These 4 programs will also stabilize more than 120 people in the next 12 months. I share my gratitude for the City Council, who recently approved a Housing Trust Fund loan for $1.3 million to rehabilitate Lincoln Tower, which has 94 units of affordable senior housing. There is no question that the unprecedented amount of funding we are providing toward affordable housing in Salt Lake City is changing lives. This year, my recommended budget continues this work by allocating $5.1 million of Funding Our Future revenue toward affordable housing. I am recommending an increase of funding for programs like House 20, which helps to stabilize individuals experiencing homelessness, people who are the highest users of costly emergency services like police, fire, and medical. I am recommending doubling the amount of funding directed toward the Community Land Trust, which helps lower the cost of home ownership. With just a $500,000 investment, we can purchase and renovate 7 additional homes for this program, giving new life to neighborhoods and individuals in our city. I am also recommending $2.6 million of funding to be placed in our Housing Trust Fund to provide loans and discounts for projects like Lincoln Tower. To thoroughly address the housing crisis we are facing as a community, we must also address housing equity and discrimination. Therefore, I am proposing 2 new pilot programs using Funding Our Future revenue. One program will use a recommended $300,000 to better identify instances of housing discrimination and to create a mechanism through which individuals can receive assistance when they feel they have been a victim. The second pilot will use a recommended $350,000 to create a landlord insurance program. This will encourage more building owners, particularly owners of smaller rental properties, to rent to individuals who use housing assistance, such as a voucher program. Similar programs across the United States have shown that while funding insurance programs like this opens units, funds are rarely used and they keep people in their home. Like never before, my administration and the City Council have prioritized the repair and maintenance of cities' roads. The adoption of the Funding Our Future initiative brought new resources to bear for our street maintenance team. Last year, using this funding, Salt Lake City doubled our street maintenance crew, including purchasing the equipment they needed to do their jobs. In January, the Streets Division completed this hiring and is now beginning our first street maintenance season with 2 full crews. My budget recommends continuing this investment of $2.4 million of Funding Our Future revenue. I am also recommending $2.1 million of Funding Our Future revenue to be allocated for new streets CIP projects. This brings the total allocation of Funding Our Future revenue directed toward streets to $5.4 million. Between my recommendations for Funding Our Future revenue, CIP funding, Class C funding, street impact fees, and our ongoing general fund contribution, Salt Lake City will invest more than $21 million in street maintenance and related projects this year. Along with this funding, we will be issuing the first round of financing from the voter-approved $87 million Funding Our Future bond. This will generate $20 million for streets reconstruction projects scheduled to begin in 2020 and 2021. These projects will be spread throughout the city, including local street reconstruction in Districts 1, 3, 6, and 7. We will also begin major road construction along 5th East and 3rd West in District 5, 1st South in District 4, and along 7th West in District 2, plus many more. Regardless of how we get around or where we live in Salt Lake City, safety is the #1 concern for every resident and visitor, and one of our greatest responsibilities as a city. Through the Funding Our Future initiative, residents have prioritized investing in the Salt Lake City Police Department, most notably through the hiring of 50 new police officers. Last year, we set aside more than $3 million of funding our future revenue to fulfill the first phase of this expansion. This first phase included the hiring of 27 new patrol officers and 13 new staff positions, including crime lab and personnel that are support staff. My fiscal year 2020 budget recommendation allocates an additional $1.9 million of funding our future revenue to complete this hiring initiative. With the addition of 23 new patrol officers, this will bring the total allocation for this effort to just under $5 million annually. The addition of these new officers will further support the 25% citywide drop in crime we have seen over the last 3 years, and allow for a more robust patrol of critical areas in the city, including our parks. Chief Brown and I understand that the addition of police officers to the department comes with great responsibility and public accountability. In October of 2017, Salt Lake City formally adopted a new body camera policy mandating the release of footage no more than 10 days from a critical incident. This policy has provided consistency to both the department and to the public. While some local departments are now debating the cost-benefit of police body cameras, the Salt Lake City Police Department is committed to ensuring our officers have updated camera technology to help them do their jobs. To accomplish this, I am recommending the allocation of $500,000 in funding our future revenue for enhanced body cameras. This initiative will fund the upgrade of Salt Lake City PD's current equipment, which must be manually activated, to cameras which will be automatically activated. This technology not only brings greater public accountability and replaces old equipment, it allows officers to focus on protecting the public during stressful and dangerous situations. As every city department operates, we recognize our responsibility to limit the environmental impact of our work. In 2016, Salt Lake City adopted an aggressive goal to reduce the city's overall carbon output 80% by 2040. For the last 3 years, we have been laying the groundwork to accomplish this goal. We have worked with our energy provider to begin transitioning to 100% clean energy. We built the nation's first 2 net zero fire stations, installed solar panels on city facilities, made the largest ongoing investment in public transit, and continue to steadily transition our fleet to cleaner vehicles. To continue this progress while addressing a critical need within our police department, I am recommending $4 million of funding our future revenue for a hybrid police vehicle initiative. Using this funding, we will replace 110 of the worst vehicles with the newly introduced Ford Responder hybrid sedan, joining departments like NYPD, which recently put 156 of these vehicles on the streets of New York City. While we will continue to need a mix of vehicles within our fleet, including our police fleet, it is critical to make changes when and where we can to ensure we honor the pledge we have made to the people of Salt Lake City. By prioritizing hybrid sedans with this funding, we estimate that each sedan will create an annual $2,300 fuel savings, as well as prevent 15,000 pounds of CO2 from entering the atmosphere. This single fleet upgrade will save $250,000 of fuel in 1 year and 825 tons of CO2. We are also continuing to make changes within other public safety agencies. This includes continuing progress within 911 and Salt Lake City Fire Department. Building on a staffing initiative we began for 911 in 2017, I am recommending $187,000 of general fund revenue to hire 3 additional dispatchers. I am also recommending $200,000 to bring on 3 new firefighters, specifically to assist with efforts at the Salt Lake City International Airport. These positions, like the airport rebuild itself, will be fully funded by airport fees and not taxpayer dollars. In closing tonight, I want to discuss a relatively small budget item that could have an enormous impact on the city's revenues, particularly in roads, housing, transit, and services for those most in need. Earlier this year, my administration recommended $80,000 to hire a full-time census coordinator to ensure that every single Salt Lake City resident is counted in the 2020 census. You will see this commitment carried forward in this budget, with decisions made at the federal level, including attempts to add a citizenship question and a change in the way the questionnaire is administered. There is already increased concern about the upcoming census. With one of the most economically and racially diverse populations in Utah, Salt Lake City cannot afford to be undercounted. Utah received $3.2 billion over the past decade based on the last census count. Unfortunately, the legislature declined to provide funding for statewide efforts to ensure Utahns are properly counted, but the capital city will not make that mistake. The proposed census coordinator will work with departments and nonprofits to reach out to hard-to-count populations across the city. And they will build on the canvassing completed last summer by members of my staff and the county to ensure so-called hidden addresses were in the Census Bureau's database. While all that I have discussed tonight was funding from local sources, federal funding is critical to the success of cities like ours. And it should also be noted, the formula for sales tax distribution is in part dependent on population numbers, making an accurate count that much more important to Salt Lake City. So thank you to the members of the City Council for providing me with this time to discuss key areas of the budget, and thank you in advance for the hard work you will do over the next several weeks. I also want to thank Julio Garcia, Jason Oldroyd, Jennifer Seelig, David Litvack, Matthew Rojas, and Patrick Leary, who helped me with this budget. And of course, a special thanks to my budget team, Director Mary Beth Thompson, John Vike, Lisa McCarver, and the entire finance team for helping me once again craft a responsible budget which prioritizes the needs of people in our great city. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'd now like to point out items B1 through B5, which will be heard as one public hearing. And I will look for a motion at this time.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that the council close the public hearing and refer items B1 through B5 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Fowler and a second by Councilmember Johnston. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this? Okay, then we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, seeing none, then that passes unanimously. We have no council potential action items. So we'll move now to section D, questions to the mayor from the, okay. Okay. Do we want to, okay. Okay, then we'll move on to item D2. Oh, David, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I'm like, there's nobody there, what do I do? Come on up. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the mayor?
I do.
Councilmember Mendenhall.
David, the first one on our list tonight is with regard to the PMA range, and I think I wasn't alone in asking that question about the administration's plans to continue public access during this time of transition or decision-making. What are the plans for public access?
There's one. There's one right there. Okay.
I don't know if it's on. It doesn't sound on.
I'll come sit next to you. Can I come sit next to you? Councilmember Mendenhall, I have not seen this question yet, and so I know there has been some information going back and forth between the administration and the public, as well as with council staff. And so I'm going to have to come back to the council with an answer on that. I don't believe that anything is being done to reduce public access to the shooting range at this time. The lease has been renewed. While there are some issues that still need to be worked out, as I understand from the information that's going back and forth, I do believe that some of the long-range shooting that has occurred on that site in the past has been suspended at this time, because that is the area that there's most concern in terms of wildfire and things like that. But I will also check with staff and come back with additional information.
Okay, thank you, David.
Just in case.
Okay, and then I think we have a question from Councilmember Fowler.
Yes, we do. Sorry, David, thank you. It's in the next question, just a request, if we may, that we would like to formally request that a representative of Economic Development and the Redevelopment Agency be included in the Mill Creek meetings. I know that there was, and I know that there are two separate meetings sort of happening so that we can continue our very productive conversations with Mill Creek at this time. One is just interstaff between administrative staff on both sides. However, I don't believe the economic development or that RDA had a representative there. And considering that some of those conversations are around creating, the potential of creating things or looking at the economic development, I think having players at the table would be helpful. So we'd like to make a formal request with that. And then also that the city attorney or whoever is delegated to that we'd ask that that person be invited to that meeting, as I think that as we move forward in negotiations and collaborations with Mill Creek, there will be some legal questions that will probably need to be answered.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have one follow-up question, I guess, to that. And I'm sure it's kind of obvious, but I'm pretty hard with stating the obvious and getting that. Is Mr. Lynn Pace the acting city attorney? I've heard rumblings, but I haven't heard anything official, and usually we get something official.
That is correct. I thought an official email went out yesterday. I will double check and make sure that an official email does go out to the council. But Mr. Lynn Pace, and I did text him that he was looking pretty good up there, just saying that he was appointed as the acting city attorney as of yesterday.
Okay, great.
Okay. Any other questions for the mayor? All right. Thank you, David. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so we'll move on to item D2, taking comments from the public, and I will call the names on the comment cards that I've received. On the comment card that I have received, and that is Victoria Walker. Hi. Hi.
Our objection to the Water Department's 4th Avenue well pumper as follows. We feel the Water Department has not considered the risks to the neighborhood that are caused by continual sodium hypochlorite contamination or exposure, excuse me. However, contrary to the Water Department's claim that sodium hypochlorite is safe and is not dangerous because it's only twice as strong as the chlorine in your home, we would like you to do research and find out that it is. The commercial sodium hypochlorite that is proposed for the pump house is 2.5 times stronger than that within your home. It breaks down into a vapor. It's not gas, it's a vapor. My son is an asthmatic, and I could never use Clorox in my home because it brought on an asthma attack. There's no refuting that sodium hypochlorite causes lung damage. It also, if you are prolonged exposure to it, it can cause COPD later in life. One of our neighbors suffers from COPD as to his exposure to commercial sodium hypochlorite when he worked in the laundry. The reason the proposed facility has a fan at the bottom of the door is because the vapor is heavy and it floats to the bottom of the floor. It is then expected to be blown out through the bottom of the door into the air. The building's door is required to have double pane glass because the workers are expected to make a visual inspection before they enter into the building. The reason they have to make the visual inspection and look at the controls is so they're not overcome by the fumes caused from the vapors. So we don't feel that sodium hypochlorite is an acceptable chemical to have in the close proximity of the homes. And that's the thing.
Time.
It's only 71 feet from one neighbor and 76 feet from another neighbor.
Time.
We don't feel that I sent you a letter.
Yes.
Please read it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. All right, update. I have received 2 more cards. Cecily Paskett. And then after her, I have David Garcia, so.
Hello, my name's Cecile Paskett.
Oh, sorry, Cecile.
My comment relates to the Salt Lake Public Utilities plans for the 4th Avenue Canyon Road Pump House project and the park block that it sits on. The surrounding median blocks are historic. They were built in 1909 and they help cement the walkability of the neighborhood. Why isn't Public Utilities considering better design alternatives for this project? Many proposed facility components do not fit the residential area or are difficult to maintain. The project plan should take better cues from the surrounding park, such as the cobble and stucco bridges and the scale of block installations. We also need to better discuss this project because not only is the proposed project in a historic district, but the park block site itself is historic, which has not been previously discussed. Further, thoughtful planning is warranted because the Canyon Road park blocks are examples of city features that have been a priority for decades. I recently completed my dissertation about the newspaper coverage about the Gateway District redevelopment project between the years of 1996 to 2001, and I have 2 observations that I think are relevant here. First, since at least the mid-1990s, residents and city planners have been excited about bringing City Creek above ground. In fact, the 1998 Gateway redevelopment master plan documents depicted the precise block that we're talking about as an example of how to do this well. During this time period, additionally, people were enthused about installing park blocks in the Gateway area, which were eventually built along 500 West. However, that area still struggles today. How much then should the city disrupt Canyon Road, which has downtown's most successful median park blocks? I know this is one of many projects, and I know that there are genuine concerns about the current well, and that I'm here because I live on Canyon Road. But these park blocks are historic, and they host steady traffic. People walking dogs, jogging, taking wedding and quinceañera photos. It has a long history and is enjoyed by many city residents. We need to do this project well.
Thank you, Ms. Paskett. Next, we have David Garcia. And followed by that, we have Winston Saylor for Catherine Williams. Okay.
First, would like to compliment Cecile on her presentation. Agree 100%. David Garcia, resident of Canyon Road, also regarding the Public Utilities Pump House on 4th Avenue. The Public Utilities has reduced the original size of the footprint of the plant, but there's much work to do. I'm working on the premise that the plant will be built, but a sharp focus should be on the size of the structure. Very specifically tonight, looking at two items, a mechanical flow meter that's in the plans right now. It has an input to output flow length of approximately 15 feet. This is mechanical. It can be replaced by newer models, magnetic flow meter, ultrasonic flow meter, or Coriolis effect meter, which has a span of approximately 3 feet or less. Smaller is better. We can knock off 12 feet of the length, one axis of the building, by substituting one of those pumps for what's planned. Number two, above ground pump. The plans currently call for a vertical axis pump, vertical. This contributes mightily to the 14-foot height of the building. Presently, there's a submersible pump. It's worked for decades. Public Utilities' immediate thought on it is that Rocky Mountain Power will no longer supply the high voltage needed to run that pump. Well, can run 480 volts into the new plant, have a step-up generator, and still run a submersible pump. Again, this is a specific feature that I think should be looked at. It could greatly reduce the height of the structure and very probably reduce the footprint. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Seeler. And you're speaking for
For my
Catherine
wife,
Wil-
Catherine Williams,
Okay.
is under the weather and has asked me to speak for her, so I may struggle with her penmanship a little bit. So Winston Sire, live at 211 Canyon Road, speaking for Catherine Williams. And she says, think globally, act locally. Most of us have heard that phrase today. I am acting about as locally as I can to preserve a premium green space in Salt Lake City. While my son naps next to me, I am counting the number of people passing the location of the proposed 4th Avenue well house. It is a normally busy Saturday afternoon on a beautiful spring day. City Creek Park defies verdant from the wet winter we had. The leaves of the 110-year-old sycamores are that bright neon green you see only in spring before summer toughens them up. People are walking with friends and family, dogs, one person's got a bird. People pass on scooters, both electric and foot-powered, bicycles, skateboards, some run. Some stop by the creek in the shade. 174 people are counted in 1 hour. Multiply that by the 10 hours of 9 to 7, the prime visiting, and that's a good guess for the day. The early runners are out before 6, and the party goers and couples on dates wander through the park into the wee hours of the night. This year, we've got 30 weekends from April through October, the prime visitation time to see Memory Grove. Multiply that 174 by those 60 weekend days to account for Saturday and Sunday, and you come up with 104,400 different individual visitors. You then take the weekdays, and you can increase that number probably somewhere up around 260,000. So you're looking at something around 1.5 to 1.8 times the population of Salt Lake City visiting Memory Grove and coming up to City Canyon Park there. And so I think you have the residents here that are speaking, but I think we think of ourselves as advocates for the larger community that enjoys this park and the larger population of Salt Lake City that comes through and, comes through to Memory Grove, up City Creek Canyon, and that's who we're really speaking for, and that we really hope that the opportunity there for this well house is one that's made in the best way possible to minimize the impact to this park that everyone in the city enjoys. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Winston and Catherine. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? All right, for members of the public that are here, if you're parked in the library parking lot, then members of the city council staff can give you a validation. And seeing no other cards on this issue, then we will move on to our next item. We have no new business. So we will now go to item G1, unfinished business regarding a resolution, tentative budget for Salt Lake City, including the tentative budget for the library fund for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Mr. Chair, I move the council approve a resolution adopting the tentative budget for the Salt Lake City, Utah for Salt Lake City, Utah, including the tentative budget of the library fund for fiscal year 2019 and 20.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Johnston, or, excuse me,
Rogers.
by Councilmember Rogers, and second by Councilmember Johnston. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, seeing none, that passes unanimously. We're now on to the consent portion of our agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Johnston. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, then that is unanimous. This concludes our formal city council meeting. Thank you for your attendance. The city council meeting the city council stands adjourned.